Welcome to the Worship Keys YouTube channel. My name is Carson Bruce. So glad you're here. We talk all things music theory, gear, industry, and ministry for your worship keys playing. If this episode is beneficial for you or you have any questions as you continue to watch, feel free to comment below, and I'd love to hear any feedback that you have along the way. So let's get into today's episode. Today, I'm with special guest Otto Gross II.
Hey, brother.
I'm so glad you're here, man. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
You're awesome. Everything.
I don't know about that, but Otto, I came across your Instagram page some months ago, and I was like, man, that's awesome. The first video I clicked on, I think it was Jamal's Jive.
Okay.
And it was like, ooh, it just got me bumping there. I was like, let's go.
Thank you.
So groovy. In fact, I think we should play that video real quick.
I'm happy to.
Right now. And shout out to everyone involved with that video, with the video production, and of course you producing that, the beat and everything. But you guys got to check this video out. So check it out now.
Got it.
I hope you guys enjoyed that because I love that. And there's more to come with that. So Otto, you do your own production, you do your own music. And again, your Instagram handle, Otto Gross Productions on Instagram at least. And
Yes.
but man, what do you currently do? What's your current job description? And you have a ton of music out there on Spotify, Apple Music, and tell us all what you do, man.
Sure. Well, right now I am the worship director at Christ Church, Nashville, in the Nashville area. I just try to create. I'm a creative in heart and in nature. I have a wonderful family, a beautiful wife, and it's just us living in Nashville and just wanting to be a great husband and great dad and great musician and creative. And as far as the projects that are going, I'm working a little bit still in kids music. I've done that for a long time, a lot of years. A couple of different companies, just producing jingles and that sort of thing, and playing in church and loving all the things that come.
I want everyone to hear about your background growing up.
Okay.
And how you came to love music. By the way, you're multi-instrumentalist. I've seen you on the drums and other instruments too. So tell everyone maybe the church you grew up in, your a little bit of your background.
Sure. So as a preface, I am a drummer. That was the first instrument ever.
That's awesome.
And also what I went to college for and all that.
And you went to Berklee, right?
I did, yeah.
That's incredible, man.
Yep, that's where I met my wife.
Now, did you graduate from Berklee?
I did, yes.
That's amazing. Yeah, a lot of people start at Berklee and they just go. So, but you finished. You finished the degree.
I finished it.
Congrats, man.
I finished
it's huge.
it. But yeah, I mean, I was born to two incredible parents, a pastor, my father, Pastor Otto Gross Sr., and my mom, who was director of admissions at college in Maryland, Michelle Gross. And both my parents were they were lovers of music for sure. Mm-hmm. My dad, as a pastor, I mean, the kind of church I grew up in, it was Church of God in Christ is the denomination.
Yeah.
Very spirit-filled, very exuberant, and, joyous. So many adjectives you could use to describe that. Right. And music was a huge part of that growing up for sure. And even in the faith, I mean, the Bible commands us to sing, and it talks about the different instruments you can even play, making music on the timbrel and harp and horns. So music has always been a big part. I'll say even before that, my dad is number 3 of 7 children. So my grandparents had 7 kids, and all of them are musicians. So my dad was actually the one that became a pastor.
Wow.
But I have an uncle who is one of the lead saxophonists, I call it saxophonists, in New York, who's been in a few movies, played with the Duke Ellington Orchestra.
Oh, man.
Is incredible. Mark Gross, you should check him out. Mark Gross music. Wow. I have another uncle, Uncle Vincent, who plays the trumpet, same deal. All of my aunts play and sing and were choir directors. I have an aunt who, actually all of them played the organ and all of that. And then my oldest uncle, my dad's oldest brother, is a guitar player. And so music was all in the family is what I'm getting at. And ironically, all 7 children had kids, and all of my cousins play. And I've got a cousin everybody's on tour with somebody right now. I've got a cousin that was on tour with Savion Glover and Chris Bodie, another cousin who was probably my favorite piano player in the United States, who plays gospel and so many other things. And he's an incredible songwriter. Another cousin that's a songwriter. I mean, all of my cousins, I've got cousins that are, doing musical theater, and there's just so much music in the family. So for me, growing up, there was this, huge reservoir of incredible music to see and hear all the time. Every time we had, Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever, we would go to my grandmother's house and everybody was playing and singing. And I just grew up around that, and it's funny when people, I'm always grateful to get encouragement about my production and all of that, and I attribute a lot of it to just wanting to be as good as I could be, because I felt like I was in a family full of people that were so much more incredible than I was, and even that's almost, I'd say, a big part of my testimony, if we're being honest. So I grew up in the church. When I got to, in terms of when I started playing piano and transitioning from drums. I played drums all my life. My mother, she was very big. She wanted me to take piano lessons as a kid.
Okay. And
I was just like, no. The piano is not for boys. It's for girls. I had this twisted whatever, And I'm like, Mom, I'm a drummer and I will play drums. And I just, tried to refute the whole piano thing.
Yeah.
But I took a couple lessons, but most of my training became on drums and percussion. And then I went to, when I got to high school, a big part of my testimony happened. We had found out that I had scoliosis, a pretty bad degree of it. Wow. For those that don't know, scoliosis is just curvature of the spine. And we saw it my last year in middle school, so I guess I was in 8th grade. And after seeing the doctors and seeing how bad it was, they gave me the choice of either wearing a brace for, basically the rest of my life, or getting a surgery. And so, Mom and Dad, after prayer and talking it through, we got a couple different opinions from some big doctors in Maryland. Baltimore is where I'm from. And, once they asked me, I decided, let's do the surgery. I'm young. I think this will recover. And so I did the surgery. And that was my freshman year in high school. In high school, when I got there, it was an all-guys Catholic high school. And they were very big in marching band. They had a jazz band, a wind ensemble, all of that. And I tested into all of those things on drums.
Awesome.
And I remember I got into jazz band and all that then. And once the surgery happened, I also played on the basketball team. It was the freshman basketball team that year.
Awesome, man.
And
very well rounded.
Well, at least
awesome.
I tried to be.
That's awesome, man.
Wasn't purposeful. It was just I wanted to have some fun. But when it came time for the surgery, I had the surgery at Johns Hopkins. And I want to say, you have to fact check me on this. I probably should ask Mom, but I want to say it was a week or so at the actual hospital. And I remember that was a tough time for my parents. I remember before going in, Dad will always tell this story, how like they gave me the anesthesia or whatever to put me under, and Dad just started weeping. And I remember him saying, like, in that moment, I just wanted to say to the doctor, is there a way that I can do it? Just put me on there. Don't put my son there. So that was it's a touching time. Anyway, when I get out, I want to say I was at the hospital for a week or so, and then they transferred me to a children's hospital just to kind of recover. Mm-hmm. I have a scar on my back that's, yay long, and surgery was successful. So I get to the children's hospital, and I'm there for a while. I forget how long. I think 2 weeks or so, but it was a while that I was there. After that, we went to physical therapy, and I couldn't walk during any of this. It was just me trying to figure out how to be comfortable even in a bed, During that time, my cousins would come to the hospital and just give me food or whatever else. I had all these cards and people from school. It was. I felt the love for sure. After that time, I got to go home, and because I gotten to the point where I was able to kind of take some steps, but I could not walk up and down steps. I'd have to be on a level floor. So my mom had kind of created just this wonderful kind of bed situation in our living room on the first floor, because she knew I couldn't go up and down steps. And so I'm there, and Mom and my brothers and my dad, they're coming to help and change the gauze and clean the wounds and all that, and giving me my stuff. And I'm at home for a while. I had to get a tutor because I could not go back to school for a long while. And I remember during that time, so my drums were downstairs in the basement. I couldn't access my drums because I couldn't walk downstairs. On that floor, the only thing that we had was a piano. And I just knew I have to play something. I am going to go crazy if I don't play something, right? And the piano was the only thing I could play because this surgery I just had did not allow me to get to my drum set. And, to this day, I tell people that's the reason, that's what like started me actually falling in love with the keys and the piano. It was because it was a testimony, and
wow.
I had to do something, and that was the way that happened. So
wow.
I remember, so I would slowly get up and just start playing a little bit, and then sit back down, be in a bunch of pain. But that's how that started. So wow. I was a senior, or not a senior. I was a freshman, or I guess freshman, sophomore, in high school, and I started playing piano. And during that time, and even quite a few years before, the youngest Uncle Mark, who I mentioned earlier, all of them are jazz musicians, my uncles. And I remember Uncle Mark, he lived in New York, and I would go to his house, every so often, maybe every couple of years or something like that, where he would have me over, and he has this library that just had tons of music. And I mean, everything from, I don't want to make this too long, but
no, go for it.
He had, as a jazz musician, there's just such a rich history and legacy in that music from the 1920s all the way. I mean, even before, but all the way through. And you would find Louis Armstrong and Miles Davis and Coltrane and I mean everybody. Oscar Peterson. He had all of these records in this library. And I remember looking, and it's so colorful because all those records were really cool by RCA or whatever back then. Yeah. And my Uncle Mark was one of the reasons. He and my dad were one of the reasons why I started really listening to jazz. And I think in high school is when my love for jazz really started to develop. I had been in the church all my life, so I'd heard gospel music, but jazz really kind of took my, heart in terms of the mood that it just puts you in. And I don't remember the first record I listened to, but I do remember some of them were. I remember Giant Steps, the record that Uncle Mark had with Train. I remember Kind of Blue, Miles Davis. And I started just consuming that stuff, in high school. Sometimes I have felt like this was to my detriment. I don't feel like that anymore, but where most of the gospel keys players know and can do certain things naturally, I felt like I did not know those things because during that time, I was listening to jazz way more than I was listening to gospel music.
Got you. Yeah.
So anyway, all that to say, but that's when I fell in love with the piano. So
you didn't start playing until 9th grade, 10th grade?
Yeah, I mean, probably 9th, 10th. I would say more 10th. Yeah. We always had a piano, so I would tinkle, but I wasn't playing anything.
Right.
As Wynton Marsalis would say, I was sad. I mean, I'm still sad now. But yeah, so about.
Of course, the piano is a percussion instrument.
It is a percussion. It is a percussion instrument. You're right. And so and it just so happened that after the surgery was over, when I was finally able to go back to school, I went back to school first in a wheelchair. So my friends and the students would kind of know what was going on. But once I was able to kind of walk and get my legs and stuff together, before the surgery. So for context, the surgery happened after January, February of my freshman year. The beginning of the freshman year, I played the quads in the marching band.
Oh, yeah,
so I was harnessed with, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5
that's
drums.
fun to play, man.
It's fun. So I'm in the marching band doing quads and all that. Good time. Surgery happens. So I can't wear anything on my back after I come back. So what I did with the band was they put me in the pit, which is how I developed my chops on the marimba. Awesome. For me, it was awesome because marimba was the merge between piano and drums. Cool. It's still a percussion instrument, but it's got notes to it. So I think that transition kind of helped. It was kind of all fluid and all together, but this love of jazz and piano started developing, and I was listening to people like Oscar Peterson and Chick Corea and Herbie Hancock. I'm just listening to folks, know. Yes. And I would say that's now it may be different, but that's a different style of play than gospel in terms of what we're talking about.
Of course.
In some styles. They were in jazz music. One of the central focuses is on soloing. So the dexterity that one needs to be able to solo in that way is a little different than in a church context where a bigger primary focus is to back someone up, which is more about the chords themselves. Yes. So Otto felt like he was lacking in the chords, but this was stuff I felt like I could do,
Yeah.
Which is I feel like a big part of kind of my approach to the piano.
It's awesome.
So marching band happened. So I'm in the pit and I'm playing marimba, and sophomore year comes around, and then even when I got to jazz band, I got off the drums and I started doing vibraphone, and I was playing jazz vibes, and I started listening to vibes players and soloing, and I think all of that is what led me to I think I like the piano. So and I was playing in church and all that, and there you go.
That's amazing. So. Tell us about your journey going to Berklee, and how was your Berklee experience?
Sure. That's another testimony for me. Like I said, I have a very big family, and just to kind of be vulnerable for a second, I alluded to this earlier, but in my family, there were internal like struggles with, am I good enough? At the end of the day, it was like, man, everybody in my family can play. Everybody in Baltimore can play. Am I good enough? Should I be doing this? And all of that. And there is a competition that happens every year that the NAACP puts on. That's the National the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People is the organization.
Yeah.
I think I got that right. And the competition is called ACTSO, ACTSO. And basically, all of the minority, best talent in every area come together and they compete. And first you do it regionally, like in your city or whatever. And if you place well, then you go to, kind of nationals and all that. Yeah. And I had done that every year. My first year I played drums, actually with my cousin, the one I was talking about that is probably my favorite piano player. William McMillan is his name. Go follow him because he's incredible. I did that on drums my first year. Second year, I think I did vibraphone, maybe? I forgot what I did. And then my senior year in high school, I'd been playing piano for a couple of years at least by that point. And so I tried out on piano, and I remember I did it for Baltimore County, and I went in and I forgot what I played. I want to say it was Mr. PC or something like that. It was a jazz tune, and I placed in the regional, in the local in the Baltimore County, and I got the gold. So they were sending me to national. I got to nationals my last 2 years, but the last year got to nationals, and by then, I mean, I was into jazz. I still couldn't play, but I loved the music, And I remember that year, my senior year in high school, the nationals were in DC, which is an hour from where I live, and so we had the nationals there. My cousin, one of the songwriters, his name is James Johnson. Follow him, incredible. He came up to play drums for me. And actually my teacher at Calvert Hall, my high school, played bass. And I remember walking in, and there were these judges, they come in, the adjudicators for the nationals. And one of them, his name is Stu Gardner. Stu was the music director for The Cosby Show. So I remember walking in thinking like, wow, okay, these are like, high-end people for these judges. Right. So I go and I sit down, and the tune I played was Caravan, written by, Duke Ellington. Can I play?
Yeah, go for it, man. Yeah.
So I played that tune, and I had been working on it, and I felt like it, That was one time. I don't get these often, but there are some times when after you play, you say like, I felt good about that. Usually it's like, oh, I messed up here and I messed up here. Yeah. That time I felt like, well, whatever happens, I feel like I did a good job and I'm proud of myself. So I played the tune, and then we go about having fun for the week. They have like a week thing where you can just have fun and all that after you're done, and you're watching the other people. And there's a bunch of other categories. There's painting and, math and dance, and there's contemporary music. And then there's classical, like, Western European classical music. There's all these different categories. So I'm watching everybody and all that. And then we get to the last day where they announce the people that place or the winners for each category. And again, this is the national one. Yeah. So everybody's county, and this is every state is represented in that room. Everybody's in their section. It's this big, huge auditorium full of people, full of all of the contestants, and then all of their parents. And then you've got these stars like Terry Crews was there. All these, like, there's a couple different Disney stars or whatever that had done, like, African American or minority that had done it in the past. So we're in that room and they're announcing the different categories and the winners. And then they get to, for best contemporary music performance, I want to say best contemporary music performance or whatever the category was. In third place is a saxophone player friend of mine, placed third. In second place, we have, and there was another friend of mine who plays piano, and at that moment I was like, well, I feel good, so I didn't win, but I feel good. And then they said, in first place, the gold medal goes to from the Baltimore County chapter. And then I heard once the person said Baltimore County chapter, I heard my mom, who was like 30 rows back, scream, right? But I heard mom start like, my mom gets emotional, right? And then they called my name. Mm-hmm. And for about like 10 seconds, I was in a complete daze thinking like, this is absolutely a dream. There's no way that I won gold medal for best contemporary music performance out of all of the people in the United States in minority that have
That's
competed
incredible.
in this thing, and that just meant so much to me in that moment. I'm the reason I'm saying it is because in my heart I almost felt the Holy Spirit like give like a big hug, in a sense. It was like,
man,
Otto, don't compare yourself to other people. I've given you what I've given you, and no one else has what you have. So you work on that. And so I was grateful for that. So I stood up and got my medal, and I had gotten the gold medal for the national competition.
That's amazing, man.
So that happened. So I know I'm going somewhere with the story because of your initial question. So that happened about 2 weeks later, or however long later. I don't know how long in between. I got a letter in the mail at our house in Owings Mills, Maryland, from Berklee College of Music. And I opened the letter. First couple of words says, "We're pleased to inform you." And when I read, "We are pleased to inform you," I just got really happy. But you're accepted, to Berklee College of Music. And I ran to mom and dad and showed them, and my mom started crying again, because I had worked so hard, and she knew that was really where I wanted to go. And so that had happened. And then not only that, but I had gotten a scholarship to go to the school, which is like, in a matter of a couple of weeks, I felt like God was like, Otto, you are good enough,
It's amazing.
Just walk in that. And man, that has been, I don't know, it's been a journey, but it always makes me just very grateful for, for what God can do, and and it makes me very intentional when I'm talking to other people and when I'm encouraging other musicians or whatever, because I know that, as a creative, it's tough to create your stuff and want to put it out there and know that some people they won't like it, and some people will, and how do I do it, and how am I supposed to post, and is it every other week, and am I posting too much, are people getting like all that stuff can just break your brain down, really like hurt your heart. And so I'm always wanting to encourage people that no matter what, there's only one you. There's one you.
Right.
Just go ahead and be you,
Yes,
and
sir.
do not worry about the other stuff. I know that's easy to say and maybe hard to do, but also like you have to, because that's the thing that God put in you that other people need,
Yes.
And I got to tell myself that even today, man. In Nashville,
I know,
everybody can play, everybody can do 20 things, and everybody's good, and so anyway, all I had to say,
man, that's incredible.
that happened. So I got accepted. So we're preparing for Berklee and all that. We drive up to Boston, get to Boston, and I won't make this long. But we get it. My parents are dropping me off, and we're just talking, and Dad's having the talk with me. He's had it my whole life, but just the talk about, all right, new chapter in life, brother, and here's what we got. Of course, they pray over me. Mom is giving me the talks also, and we're hugging all that. So first day, we move into my dorm and hug them. Mom and Dad go back home, and I'm for the first time in life, I'm like, I'm okay. I'm on my own for real now. I was on my own in high school in the sense that I had a car, but no.
It's different.
Right. And so I remember that first day. I was the first night we moved in, and I will never forget this. But I was in my dorm, and the way the dorm that I moved in is 270 Commonwealth, and the way they have it structured is every floor there's, all of like your rooms and it's common areas, common bathrooms and all that. But down in the basement is just a circle of practice rooms, tons of practice rooms, right? And I remember it's like 11:30 at night, midnight.
Right.
I walk downstairs. This is the first night I'm at Berklee. And I'm walking around and I'm seeing all of these people from all over the world like shedding. I had a buddy who was playing saxophone. I had another friend of mine who he's a drummer also, but he was playing bass and he's incredible at both. And I'm seeing like all these people just playing, and I'm like, it felt like heaven. I don't know what heaven feels. Heaven on earth, I do. But I'm like, man, this is insanely wild, and it felt so surreal in that moment. And I'm walking around and I'm like, this is what this is. This is so incredible. There's more people on the earth like me that that are doing this all the time at 11:30 at night,
Yeah, exactly.
So it was just a special feeling that first day, man. And, so that was my journey there. And there you go.
That's amazing. That's incredible. It's really cool to hear the struggle too that you had.
Sure.
With scoliosis, and what you faced to kind of get through that. And it's really cool that it led you to the piano in 9th, 10th grade. But it's really amazing that you were able to win those awards and then go to Berklee, and that's a huge thing to do, and graduate. Now, did you study drums or piano there?
Drums. So I studied drums and percussion there.
Okay,
so yeah. And I mean, it's funny because in terms of the academic tract, on paper and my professors and all of that, they knew me as a drummer and a percussionist.
Yeah.
In Boston, in like general Boston, because I did play at churches and stuff, they all knew me as a piano player.
Oh, gotcha.
Which was just really funny because some folks, when they hear the drum thing, they're like, "You play drums?"
Yeah.
And it's funny to just respond, actually, drums is my first instrument. I don't play piano.
Right.
I love the instrument, but I can't actually play it,
That's incredible.
So yeah.
That's amazing. And so here in Nashville, do you play a lot with the choir room?
Yeah. With Dwan. Dwan in the choir room. Yeah. And I mean, same thing. I mean, I'm surrounded by all of my friends who are incredible players.
That's amazing.
All of them. Yeah. And the choir room's incredible.
Are you on like keys, piano, or are you on organ there primarily?
We switch off a lot, but I'm probably playing organ more than I do keys for the choir room.
Okay.
I mean, there's a cohort of guys that are playing, but you'll probably see me more times on the organ.
Okay, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Just as a little tidbit too, my wife, she also had scoliosis and had surgery. She has a rod and a few screws in her back.
Yeah, same. Okay,
it's crazy.
Wow.
And she was in middle school, so a little before. Just a few years, kind of almost the same thing, but almost the same timeline. But she was a little younger than you were when she had a rod and screws, and then she also got a pacemaker put into her heart as well.
Okay.
So, and that kind of led her to become a nurse. She works at Vanderbilt.
I was going to ask what led her to Vanderbilt, and wow.
So when you said scoliosis and the rod and the screws and the surgery and the brace and everything like that, I remember Holly sharing stories of that in middle school and how difficult that was during that time. But man, I know that's had to have been so tough.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, when you're a kid, I guess it's it's whatever. What I enjoyed was being home and not having to go to school, you know?
Right.
So I guess it'd probably be a lot tougher now than it was then, but
Yeah, man.
man, that's good I feel like we're finding commonalities.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's
Speaking of commonalities, before we started recording, we just discovered that you were in Hamilton, Alabama for us some time.
I was.
And when you said, yeah, I was like, I'm originally from Alabama. So you lived in Hamilton, Alabama. So as soon as you said Hamilton, I said, well, there's really nothing else in Hamilton.
Except the ramp.
Except the ramp.
That's awesome.
I love the ramp. I've shared it a few times on the podcast previously, but I remember going to the ramp as a 10, 11, 12-year-old. And even after that too, and loving it, and it was so transformative.
Yeah.
So the ramp in Hamilton, Alabama, I can't say enough great things about it, especially being so formative in my life.
Sure.
And the musicians there are top notch. But Otto, you were on the team with Eddie James, is that right?
Yes, I was.
Can you tell us about being with Eddie James? When were you with Eddie James? How did you get connected? Yeah. And how was that whole experience doing that?
Man, I will try to make this as pithy as possible, but that was such an incredible time in my life. It was incredible, so it's hard. Yeah. I graduated Berklee 2010, and I knew that after Berklee, I either wanted to be in Los Angeles, New York, or Nashville. The reason Nashville won is because at the time, I thought like, I love more the speed of hometown. There's places to park. There's a lot of nature and trees and just, right. It's calm. And when I thought New York and Los Angeles, I don't think that.
Absolutely.
I could be wrong. No offense to anyone that lives there. But my thought was I want to go down south, and do it. So I did. I remember in Berklee we had a trip where we actually visited Nashville. They do it every year. It's the Nashville trip, and that was the first time. It wasn't the first time I ever came, but it was the first time I actually got to really see the city and what was there. And again, that was back in 2009 or whatever it was. Yeah. So I had a buddy who came to Nashville to live. I stayed with a couple friends. I was touring with them for a little bit, just like a couple of weeks. And then there was another friend of mine who lived, I want to say on 12th. I didn't know it was 12th at the time, but he lived on 12th at that time. And he said, well, you can stay with me for a while. So I did. And he had like a little small studio apartment. It was so funny because I was sleeping on the floor. And another friend of mine who also went to Berklee, his name is Taylor Lee. Taylor's a bass player, incredible. You should follow him too. Incredible. And Taylor and I, we would play kind of fusion and jazz together at Berklee times. And I remember Taylor telling me at one point, "Hey Otto, I know this guy," and it was Eddie James' brother, David James.
Yeah.
I know this guy who, is wanting some musicians and knows some people. I think you should get hooked up to him. So Taylor, he connected Eddie and I. I think Taylor might have actually called Eddie and just kind of told him. I don't know if he told him about me or what it was exactly, but we had connected. And I remember Eddie and I talked on the phone for a little bit. And I think I told him I'm planning on being in Nashville and whatever else. And he got me connected with his kind of second in command. Her name was Christine. She's a very dear friend of ours. And Christine Woodard, and she kind of handled all of Eddie's business at the time. And I remember this was the second week that I was at Ed's house, and I got a phone call from Christine. I forgot exactly what she said, but it was something to the effect of, "Hey Otto, we want to connect some more. Would you be available to maybe come do a service with us?" And I'll say, "Sure, I would love to." That the next day, Eddie had sent a 15-passenger van with some of the folks on the team, some of the dancers and a couple musicians, to pick me up. and I got my suit. I mean, I had a little suitcase at the time. I put it in the van. I was in Nashville. I got in the van, and they drove me to Louisville, Kentucky.
Wow.
And that was the first service I had ever seen. I didn't play. Well, no, I did play. They were doing. There's a song Eddie does, "Freedom, Freedom," freedom.
Yeah.
I remember. That's so funny now, and I'm thinking about this in real time. That's funny. I got to the church in Kentucky and had my bags there. I met the team. I met Eddie, and I shook Eddie's hand, and we just talked for a couple minutes. He was getting prepared to do ministry. So I wasn't trying to bother him, but he's just, the sweetest guy ever. And I met the band guys, and we just kind of hung, and they were just kind of showing me the ropes, and I was just there, and I enjoyed the service. And I remember they got to Freedom, and the piano player, he's another great friend of mine named Colton. Colton just kind of motioned for me to man, come on up and play. And there was another keyboard there. It was just open. They just had it set up. So I was like, okay. And they were playing Freedom, and it's 4 chords. So
yeah, right.
So I jumped on, and I don't know. After that day, it was just a wrap. I never went back to Nashville, for the next 3 years. We started going to ministry. So during that time, that was the start of that. And then just being on the road with Eddie. So he had a ministry called Dream Life, where he was just like a father figure and a mentor to youth and young adult that were going through different struggles in life, and may have been, from anything from some addictions to, just abuse or things that might have happened at home. And he would just help walk them through different programs. On the road with Eddie, he would have a group called Dream Life. He would have us, the band, a group of singers, a group of dancers.
Yeah.
And we all traveled together. And, it was incredible. We would go from church to church and host home to host home, sometimes hotels, just doing ministry.
Right.
And, that was really the first time, maybe not the first time, but that was a time where I really began to notice how to develop playing in a band context, because I was with TJ and Paul and Colton all the time.
Right.
So we really got to learn each other musically in a way that I think is not super duper common, just because it's easy to go from gig to gig. But when you're with the same people all the time, like a lot of musicians know what this feels like. There's just a connection that you build. So it was easy for me to learn the songs quickly because of that. And I was really grateful for that time. That's when I started falling in love with Pro Tools and production. I started figuring out, learning how to track. And like we talked about earlier, even with the gospel, I started seeing and hearing the gospel in a way that was a little different than I had heard at my Catholic high school, or that I had heard even in the Kojic church growing up. Nothing against any of those. I'm just grateful for the different facets that I was able to see the Holy Spirit and see the Lord in. Yeah. During that time, I learned all of the songs, and so Taylor was the one that got me connected. And then right when I had joined, his previous music director, he's another great friend. His name is Marlon Robinson, who I don't want to get this wrong, but I think Marlon is the MD at Jensen Franklin's church.
Oh, awesome.
I want to say.
Awesome,
you should
man.
Probably have him on the
He's cool, man. Would love to have him on.
But Marlon Marlon still played for Eddie, but he had come off the road full time.
Yeah.
And and so we would be going from church to church in different places and just doing ministry, and I loved it. I was living in a bus and in host homes, and I just loved it, playing and all of that. And then I got introduced to the ramp through that, because there was everybody had been on the road. Everybody had been talking about the ramp, and they'd been talking about Karen Wheaton, and I was like, who is that? Who are y'all talking about? You know, and then when I got there, I saw I got it. You know, and that's when I met Tyler and Bryn Waddell and all of the friends there, and so I don't know. That's how I got hooked up there, and so we got to Hamilton, and I don't know. I still remember it like it was yesterday. Those times it might be 7 or 8 p.m. and I would walk out the door and walk to that little Shell gas station on the corner and get one of those little pizzas. It was a good time, So
that's awesome.
Yeah, dude.
So cool, man. So you were with Eddie from what years?
2010 to 2013.
Awesome. I love the ramp. Love Eddie James Ministries. Super cool that you were a part of that, and thanks for sharing. I do want to hit on your Otto daily ditties that you have done in the past, and
sure.
Talk a little bit about your personal production now. So I know we heard Jamal's jive earlier, but it kind of starts off with this like percussion, almost like from your mouth, right? And just
sure.
Like a little, just groovy, man, funky.
Yeah.
Like you could hear that style of,
Thanks, man.
of like that, a little bit of jazz and fusion, but really like a funk beat, and then you just kind of just go into it, and do a little blues riffs, and
thanks, man.
And I love that. Tell me about the Otto daily ditties. Are you still doing those? Are you bringing them back? Are you continuing those?
Yes to all. Yes.
Tell us all, man.
Yeah, so hashtag Otto Daily Ditty is a thing I started in COVID. So for a long time, from 2013 until COVID, I was working at a children's music education company, and I wore a lot of hats there, but I produced music for them. I was a character, like a animated character that they had, and I've got a goofy personality and all of that. And I was this character that encouraged kids about, like being improvisatory. That was kind of my whole thing.
I love that.
So the main character is another great friend of mine. His name is Graham Hepburn, and Graham is an incredible pianist, classical pianist, and extremely hilarious. He's from England.
Okay.
So his British accent is awesome, but also he's super witty, super funny. He could be a comedian. And he had this musical comedy show that he'd done, and he brought all of that into what we had done for Quaver. So he was kind of if he was the Batman, I was sort of the Robin of the bunch. I was kind of the cool jazz musician with the dreadlocks, encouraging the kids in that way.
I love your hair, by the way.
Thanks.
The dreads, yeah, they're cool, man.
So anyway, I'm saying that because I picked up a lot about encouraging people with my music through that work, and encouraging people with joy. So once COVID happened, that shut everybody down for a long time. So my wife and I, we were in the house with the kids. We at the time it was only just Otto, because Nova was born in 2022, and so it was just my son and my wife, and that was the first time in my life that I had been in my house with all of my toys, with the organ, the organ and the piano and my drums all day long, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, don't threaten me with a good time, Yes. So I had been thinking, and I mean, I was never good at social media posting. Still not. I just got to get better. But I've been thinking for a while, like, this is such a rough time that people are going through. And I just want to do my personality has always been just bring joy to whatever it is that you're doing, because people need joy no matter what, even if they say they don't, even if they reject it, they need it,
Right.
And so I was thinking, like, what's something that I could do that I love to do already that I could just film myself doing,
right?
And so that is what came out, is like, I'm not the first person ever to show themselves beating on pots and pans. We all do that. I mean, musicians do that all day long, everywhere they go. And that was my thought. It's like, that's something I love. I'm doing it whether I realize it or not. I'm always hitting the car horns or playing with the windshield wipers, or hitting the mailbox, whatever. So I'm serious.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, maybe I could do that. Well, what would I call it? And so I'm thinking of these names, and then I don't know. I got onto the ditty, and I was like, well, maybe it's some kind of ditty.
Yeah.
Like a a little phrase, or what can it be? Yada yada. But I want to use my name in it because I want people to know, like, So it led me. I asked a couple friends. I was like, what do you think about the name Otto's Ditty or the Daily Ditty or something?
Yeah.
And then workshopping that, and then that's when I came up with it. And I said to myself, okay, well, I hate posting online. I created a TikTok account knowing that, all right, well, nobody's going to know who I am here because it's brand new. I didn't have any followers, nothing like that.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll do it here. I'll see what this TikTok thing is.
Yeah.
And what I'll do is I'll do a ditty every day. I'm just going to choose something that I find around the house or while I'm traveling and just play it, and I'm going to post it. And I'm not going to look at the comments, So I forgot what the first one was, but it was around the time when my wife and we had gone on a trip to Florida, I think. And, I had downloaded the app, and I was like, I'm going to do it. So I had done one with my wallet. It was the wallet ditty. And then I did one in the hotel room on the desk. And it's just, it's my wanting to just show people that you can make music with anything.
Yeah.
But two, creativity is everywhere. That's the bigger thing I want, because it's not just about the music.
Right.
Like, I want to show any kind of influencer or kid or whoever, whether you're a business person or, a quantum physicist. I don't know. There's creativity to be found and explored in anything you do.
Yes.
And so hopefully that's what the Otto Daily Ditty shows, is that like, I can beat on a chair and I can still make music, and we can have fun. So I started it, and I was faithful to doing it every day and posting it every day for a while, and then
life happened.
Life happened, but it's not dead. I will keep doing it for sure. And
that's awesome.
And I am wanting to just the quality to be better and all of that. So yeah,
that's amazing. Well, I mean, the quality of what you do is really, really awesome. I mean, the audio and the visuals, the music videos, the Christmas video that you did.
Thank you, brother.
That was incredible, man. And when I watch your stuff, I can't help but smile. Like you said, you bring joy to people. I'm just listening at it, just going, yeah, it's just bobbing my head and smiling, and a few stank faces in there, when you have don't da 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 da, those little runs.
Man.
And
thank you.
It's awesome, man. I love that. You should continue to do that.
Yeah.
Tell us about some products that you have available for people, some bundles, some things, some learning, teaching guides. That I saw that on your link on Instagram, man.
Yeah,
tell us, and we'll link it here on description and
Man.
podcast. But tell us about that, man.
Thank you for that. That means a lot. So I try to structure it. What I need to do is build the website, but I try to structure it so it makes sense. But if you look at my link tree, I do have a lot of music education materials for, it's not just for music teachers or music educators. This can be for parents, but they help students and children just to explore creativity. It helps them learn different musical, things. So that's there. I've got some professional development workshops that I've done. And it would be a blessing, if you checked it out and shared it with friends or homeschool parents or your schools, or if you know a district supervisor or whatever. But yeah, all of that is in my link tree. I've got music there. The music that I've put out, I need to put out a lot more.
You even have a thing that teaches people the dance to one of your videos.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. To actually,
pretty cool.
So I mentioned my work in music education. That company that I worked at, every state has what's called a Music Educators Association, and they all do these conferences. All the states do the conferences. In fact, I'm going to one at the end of this month. That's next week, to Georgia for the GMEA to probably do that workshop. But
that's awesome.
I would go to all of these conferences and I would do these workshops to help teachers, just give them more tools to be able to help with their students. So I'll give workshops on body percussion, or workshops on, improvisation, or how to improvise with 7-year-olds, or whatever.
Right.
So So we do a lot of that. So yes, that workshop is on there.
How to improvise with 7-year-olds,
Yeah.
10-year-olds, 11-year-olds. Like, that's amazing. Like, people are wanting to do that now as a 30-year-old, 40-year-old.
Yep.
But learning it as a kid, and it's just just a part of your vocabulary. That's incredible. I have a nephew. He lives in Honduras. My sister's a missionary, and he's just growing up bilingual. He just speaks, he knows English and Spanish, and he's like, 4 or 5 years old. And just super smart guy. But if you start like a young age, like you're doing 7, 8, 9 years old, teaching them how to hear things and how to improvise, that's incredible, crucial, actually.
Yeah.
So cool, man. Well, thank you so much for sharing about what you do, just your journey. I think that's incredible. Like, your whole family, they're legends, man.
They're
are legends.
Yes, they really are. Seriously.
Incredible, man. Just super, super cool. One last thing for this little segment is, what's your number one advice for, maybe if you could say something to your old self, younger years, I should say, 9th, 10th grade Otto, who, you're a musician, but you got a lot of life ahead of you. You don't know what's going to go on. 9th, 10th grade, what would you say to yourself? To that person?
This is not going to sound super deep. I probably would tell myself to practice.
There you go.
If I'm being honest, because I mean, if I thought about it more, I would, myself and I would have a sit down and talk about a lot of stuff. But I think one of them would be, look, when you're like, focus on those things that you think you really want to get good at, because when you do, and you reach the point of comfort in something, when something becomes comfortable, that's really when you can have the most fun, and that's when you feel the most confident.
That's good.
And I've learned in my later years, I've learned that the reason that's such a big deal. I know it sounds small, but the reason that's such a big deal is because that comfort helps relieve a lot of stress in other areas that I think honestly can creep in with self-doubt and angst and even anger or whatever. A lot of it comes just by like doing simple things that you think,
that's good.
I don't need to do this right now. So
that's good, man.
Probably would say that. Yeah.
I love that. And this is going to be a 2-part series for sure.
Like, sorry. I was hoping it wouldn't be long. I'm sorry.
No,
man.
I love it. There's so many things too that we could even dive deeper on in your life and your career so far. And greater things to come, I'm sure, Otto, which is, I'm looking forward to seeing and staying connected with you, at least seeing what you do online and whatnot. Along those lines, we're going to make this a 2-part series. So we're wrapping up this episode. Thank you guys for being a part. Next week, we're actually going to have Otto right here on the piano, giving his best tips for, I think we need to go the improvisational route, honestly, man.
Okay.
I think we need to do like your best tips for improvising, and you've been teaching that and workshopping that for a long time. And honestly, guys, if you're wanting some more tips and advice for how to play during those down moments, or behind a pastor, or at the end response altar call type moments, next week's episode is going to be really good for you too. Just some little tips on what progressions do I need to play? What are some go-to progressions? What are some things I can think of when I'm improvising? And like you hit on right now, some practical tips of practice tips of, hey, I practice this scale, I practice this progression, I know the number system, I know the circle of fifths. What are some practical tips? That's going to be next week's episode with Otto here, because you definitely want to hear more of him playing the piano for one hour. I'm excited to hear you play live.
Oh no, pressure!
Give you your best advice and just to hear you play more. I know we heard a little bit of your music here on this episode, but definitely go check out Otto Gross Productions, and stay tuned for next Wednesday, because we're gonna be getting into some more nitty gritty. So thank you for being on the podcast, man.
Anytime. Thank you.